Welcome to the Prophecy Club. Our topic today is Trump suspends Constitution, brings internal revolution. Now, I know that sounds like a headline, like it's already happened. I'm going to write it that way because I think that the prophecies are strong enough, and I don't even want to say that, strong enough to say it's probably coming. Now, before I get into it, first of all, let me give you a little bit of topic about the dollar, a little update. $5.5 trillion in balance sheet capacity has been unlocked, assessing the impact of SLR changes for big banks. What's it saying? Hang on. It goes on to say that this balance sheet capacity that has been unlocked, assessing the impact of these SLR changes for big banks, is giving money to these big banks. How much money? JP Morgan is getting $1.9 million just handed to them to spend however they want. Bank of America, $1.7 trillion. Look at the bottom. Morgan Stanley, $1.3 trillion. Citibank, $743 billion. Wells Fargo, $279 billion. What are they doing? Okay, well, maybe the best way to say this, let's say you and I live on an island and there's, say, 1,000 people on the island. And for as long as we can remember, the means of exchange are a certain kind of seashell, of which has been extinct now for a long time. And there's only, let's say, 5,000 seashells on this island. So the value of a seashell does not go down or up. It stayed, let's say, one seashell for a meal for 1,000 years. But then there's a shipwreck, and what was on that ship was 5,000 other seashells. Now, what does that do? Now, we don't have just 5,000 seashells anymore. Now we have 10,000. So that means the value of the seashells, all of them just went down, just a matter of time before they get there. So when they just put this kind of money into circulation, give it into their buddies, the banks, what does that do? That means the value of the dollar has to go down. Now, what does that mean? Well, it means that they're able to buy anything, everything they want to do, pay off loans themselves, the banks. But it also means that it just cut the value of everybody's dollars to whatever degree it's going, in other words, maybe in half. Or what the prophecies have seen is it goes down one third, worthless as leaves blowing in the wind. That's something that Trump can't control this. Trump can't control this. He does not control the value of the dollar. Who does? That would be the Federal Reserve or the central banking system. So it's not something the president has done. It's not something that business has, certainly not the church. It's something that the Federal Reserve, who owns the Federal Reserve? Well, it's 12 banking families. These are the people that are the Moloch and Baal worshipers, and they have controlled the planet probably since the days of Adam and Eve. Now, let's go on. Now, let's talk about Israel and Hamas War. Hostage negotiation team to fly to Doha for talks with Hamas. Talks with Hamas. It goes on to say there are currently 50 hostages remaining in Hamas captivity, if I can say here, less than half of whom are understood to be still alive. Hamas abducted over 250 people during this October 7th, 2023 invasion and has massacred some 1,200 people, and they're talking about seriously releasing the hostages. There's more. Next article, Cats. The day after will include Hamas-less Gaza. Okay, look at that. What is that saying? The day after what? The day after the agreement is finalized. There's going to be a Hamas-less Gaza. In other words, somehow, part of the agreement they're talking about is removing Hamas from Gaza. Well, let's talk about that. And I don't live there. I'm not an expert on this. I'm just going to do my best. Matter of fact, I'll be doing a lot of guessing today in the program, but I think you'll find it very informative and important. So, Katz, day after will include Hamas-less Gaza, expelled terror leaders, in Mideast cooperation. The IDF would withdraw from much as 75% of Gaza. So what they're trying to say is we're trying to come to a peace deal. It goes on to say there will be a minimum of a 60-day ceasefire in the not-so-distant future, Trump just said this week. I'm not going to play the clip, but he was out in front of the airport, and he said they're expecting the deal this week. Another article said in the next 2 weeks. Okay, let's go on, though. It is already basically agreed that Hamas will return the 10 living hostages and about half of the deceased hostages, bringing the number of hostages held by Hamas down from 50 down to around 25, originally 250. IDF will withdraw from 75% of the Gazan territory while holding on to a security perimeter as large as or larger than what it held from the January ceasefire. My point being, they're getting close to some kind of a peace deal. We're watching and hoping that America does not split Israel. We do not want to see Israel split. I do not know how they're going to give the Palestinians a state without giving them some Israeli territory, but it'd be nice if Egypt would just say, well, I'll tell you what, we'll give them a chunk of Egypt, or Jordan give them a chunk of maybe both of them. I don't know, but just don't split Israel. Now let's get on to the big topic I want to talk about. And I'm going to start with a disclaimer here. I'm not saying this is exactly what is about to happen, or the order it is going to happen, or that it will even happen. This is not a thus saith the Lord. This is my big fat guess based upon my experiences. I just counted up. I've been doing Prophecy Club 32 years now, studying prophecy for, I don't know, probably 45 years. So in case you were to say to me, Stan, what's your best guess? I mean, off the record, okay? Can you just talk to me like we're friends? Just talk to me like a friend. Give me your best guess. What do you think is really coming? I'm going to answer that today. So first of all, and I didn't put it where it's just one line at a time. That way you can read ahead and kind of think about what I'm saying. First topic I want to talk about is replacing the dollar. As we said, Coverstone, Maurice Sklar, Shane Warren have seen the dollar go one third, worthless as leaves blowing in the wind. That hasn't happened yet, but based upon what we just said, and based upon the tariffs that's going on with Trump right now, I can see that happening. I think you can too. Also, I'm going to show you a piece of paper here in just a second that further confirms that our new name is not going to be the United States of America. It's going to be the Republic of the United States. I'll show you. Also, I'll show you a picture of the new flag. It's still got the stars and the stripes, but the stars are not in a row. They're in a circle. I'll show you. Also, this new financial system, I'm thinking about just how much I want to say. And I'm thinking I probably should say very little. So I'll continue to say very little. But apparently, this new financial system is very close. I hope it removes national debt, the IRS, the Federal Reserve. That's the whole point, to go around them. And that may be the reason the banks seize all the deposits, like Brandon Biggs was shown. All right, let's go on. This is the document, and it's actually 4 pages long, and I'm not going to sit here and read the whole thing. And I didn't put the link where you can go, but anyway, you can see there's Republic for the United States of America, and I was told the reason it's not of the United States of America yet is because it's not in place yet. But you can pause and you can read it, and there's the picture of the flag. There you go. 50 stars, but they're in a circle. Circle within a circle within a circle, not a spiral. And this is the back part of it, and it tells you can pause and look it up, and you can read the whole thing. But probably it's too close to the truth, and I probably should move on, and that's all I probably should say. Also, we got 500,000 sealed indictments. They're not going to let those just go. Okay, these are some bad guys and girls. These are some bad hombres. I watched Michael Johnson right after they signed the big, beautiful deal. He said, I want you to look up there. He said, you see it says, in God we trust. And he had all of the details. He said, they put that up there back in such and such, it was like in 1960 or something like that, because there was a lot of communists that were pushing for more communism. And of course, the communism basic is Marxism. The basis of Marxism is communism. The basis of that is that there is no God. He says, so we wrote that up there because there is a God. We do believe in a God here in America. In God we trust. That's why it's there. And he said, if we ever turn away from that, then there won't be an America, in so many words. So the sealed indictments are to remove a lot of the bad people. And I think it's really, really close. Again, just a guess. And the reason I say that is because they've just opened up the alligator Alcatraz. And in the last program, I gave you a couple of articles where they are in progress of opening up the old Alcatraz just off of San Francisco out in the harbor. Why would they be doing that? Why is it that they've upgraded Gitmo and Diego Garcia? Those are prison islands. Because I think there's about to be a bunch of people that they're going to round up. Is this going to cause the rejoicing in the streets? You remember the prophecies say that not just one, but a couple, that there'll be rejoicing in the streets. Well, we haven't seen rejoicing in the streets. We didn't see it November the 4th or 5th. We didn't see it January 20th for inauguration. But if there was massive amounts of people rounded up, tanks rolling down the street, going in and massive arrests, maybe that would do it. And then if that got really, really bad, and I don't know that it will, but what if the people that got rounded up, what if there were many of those that were executed? Maybe even public. Would that make enough people angry to where some of the people start fighting against the government be busy with internal problems? Then from the oceans, Russia, Cuba, Nicaragua, Central America, and two of the countries attack and defeat America in one day. My point is, could it be that Trump's attempt to sweep up a bunch of garbage and get rid of it, be it in jail cells or something worse, causes the anger, causes the people to rise up against the government and starts the internal revolution? And I'll tell you how I got this. I was drifting off to sleep, I don't know, Friday night, I think it was 4th of July night, and this came to me. Maybe that what Trump is doing, cleaning up and draining the swamp, okay, is going to go so far as to make enough Americans angry that it starts the internal revolution. I think I've wondered now for 32 years since I've been carrying that message if that's what causes the internal revolution. All right, let's go on. So let's talk about suspending the Constitution for up to 5 years. My understanding is that there is a provision in the Constitution where the president can legally do that. And they might not call him a king, but it might give him kingly powers. Now, what are kingly powers? You go to Daniel 5:19. This is talking about Nebuchadnezzar, whom he would he slew, whom he would he kept alive, whom he would he set up, and whom he would he put down. That's the power of a king. Could it be that then Trump uses the military to quell disorder, curfews, uses a heavy hand, such a heavy hand in putting them all down, it starts the internal revolution? Let's talk about the internal revolution. Could that be part of the suitcase nukes going off? The nations revolt, refuse to do business with the RUS. By the way, I call it RUS because it's then to be called the Republic of the United States of America, RUS. So what happens if some people don't like Trump? They don't like the removal of the Constitution. They don't like Trump's Christian ways. They don't, and all of a sudden these 21 million illegal immigrants that Biden let in for a purpose rise up we understand from one report they were given encrypted cell phones, and they were told that if you'll show up when we call you, we'll put you through training, and if you die doing the things that we tell you to do, we're going to take care of your family. Could that all be done by the left? Criminals, communists, all rise up against the attempt to clean and purify our nation. Could it be that's when we see the poisoning of our waters? Many people die and get sick. I'm putting this together with a whole lot of guesses. But if you've been following Prophecy Club for a while, you know these are some pretty good guesses. You've been following for a while, you're saying, you know what? You may have it. So they start poisoning water. Many people die, get sick. They destroy electrical plants, blackouts, blow up bridges, blow up dams. In other words, just like Benjamin Fulford was told, we've ruled this planet for thousands of years. We'll destroy it rather than give it up. So rather than allow Trump to really take over and clean up America, they destroy it. Now let's talk about our U.S. busy with internal problems. Remember the prophecy said, then some of the people start fighting against the government. So we know that Israel and America are right now fighting against the Arabs. Hopefully there's peace. But we also know from the prophecies that there's going to come a time after oil is discovered, after Israel has built up the military, that there's going to be a big war where Israel and America go against most of the Arab world. She said that many nations will be involved. America turns its attention from watching its arch enemy, Russia, and as a result, Russia, Cuba, Nicaragua, Central America, Mexico, probably North Korea, and others prepare and hit us with a surprise nuclear attack. And in 1 hour, we're destroyed. They know that we can't. They know that they can't fight America face to face in a normal, conventional war and win. But they know they have to take out the RUS, the Republic of the United States of America, in 1 hour or not at all. In other words, it's got to be an all-out attack or nothing at all. So let's talk about the attack. So the RUS is hit with 3 EMP attacks, according to what Maurice Sklar saw. He saw one hit in the center of the country, one on the east, one on the west coast, fried all of our electronics. In other words, it's kind of like my dad said, he said, well, if you're going to get in a fight, he said, what you do is bend down and pick you up a handful of sand. And then you throw it in the guy's eyes, he can't see, and he said, you beat the living daylights out of him. Well, I never was much of a fighter, but I guess he was. Well, that's kind of what our enemy does to America. Hits us with EMP attacks, knocks out all of our electronics. Now, I understand that some of the military electronics will not be knocked out by that. But, you know, most of our electronics will be, okay? Which is, of course, a reason that you might want to go to EMPShield.com and get you one of these devices. See if I can get it without. Right here, EMPShield.com. Use the promo code PROPHECY. Get you a $50 discount on each one. We can put them, one for your car. This one's for the car. I've got another device for the house. Anyway, so the EMP fries all of the electronics. As a result, the RUS is blind. I'm going to read for you Henry Gruver's testimony of a vision where he said, oh no, they don't know what is happening. They're not getting through. They did not see the attack. And the reason they didn't see the attack is because all of the electronics knocked out. So here you go. Let me read it for you. Now, Henry Gruver was the first speaker we had at the Prophecy Club. I think he was the most beloved speaker, and I think he made the most DVDs. I'd have to look it up, but I think he made 8 different DVDs with us. We put him on a lot of speaking tours. People love this guy. So anyway, he says, let me explain what he does. He walked and prayed over cities. God would tell him what city. The money would just come in from God supernaturally, and he would go to the city, walk up and down every street in the city, praying aloud, pulling down strongholds, loosing the angels to do warfare. When he was done, He would go to a high point over the city, raise his hands, and reclaim the city for God. And he said many times revival would break out in the city after he'd prayed over it because he'd reclaimed the land. So he said, one day I was out doing that. I was in Wales. It was December the 14th, 1986. And I went on top of the Eagle Tower in the Carnarvon Castle. All of a sudden, I was lifted above the earth, looking down on the earth like a globe. And I saw all of these massive amount of kinds of ships and airplanes coming out of this outlet above Norway, and they headed down between the United States and Europe. They literally covered the whole Atlantic. So I looked over on the globe at the United States, and I saw coming out of the United States these radio communication towers. Now, in 1986, he didn't know what a cell phone tower looked like. But later on, when the cell phone towers started popping up, he said that's what it was. In other words, he was taken into the future. I saw these radio communication towers. I saw the jagged lines like they draw to show that communications are coming out. All of a sudden, they began to sprinkle down on the earth like dust. In other words, EMP knocked them all out. I thought, oh no, they're not getting through. They're not getting through. They don't know what is happening. They're totally oblivious. Then I began to see these submarines emerging from under the surface. I was surprised at how close they were to our borders. Well, they were in our territorial waters. Another time, he said, it almost looked like they were parked on our beaches. He said the missiles came out and it took 60 seconds or less from launch to detonation. There was no time to knock them out of the sky. I saw one hit Seattle, Bellevue, San Francisco, near Los Angeles, and San Diego, Miami, and Tampa. I saw 6 nuclear blasts that just literally leveled everything. I cried out and I said, oh God, when will this be and what will be the sign of its coming? He said, I heard an audible voice from behind me say, when Russia opens her doors and lets the masses go, the free world will occupy themselves with transporting, housing, feeding, and caring for the masses, and will let down their weapons and cry peace and safety. Then sudden destruction will come. Then is when it will come. Now, something else to tie in here. Notice the date, November 24th, 2024. Eric Prince on Sunday Morning Futures said, the U.S. has no means to shoot down Russia's Mach 9 super hypersonic ballistic missiles that were just fired on Ukraine. We can't stop the missiles Russia fires at us. And that's if they're ballistic, if they're coming from Russia. But if they're coming from submarines parked on our beaches, matter of fact, I was just then remember one of Henry's other visions, which, by the way, you might want to go and here, let me back up. Let me show you. Go to watchprophecyclub.com. Watch this video. He's got, I think it's, no, here it is, 6 visions. I was going to say 5 or 6. 6 visions of America's future. Watch that, because one of them, let me go back here. Okay. One of them said he saw a submarine literally go up on the beach. He saw people come out of the submarine. They were like, soldiers, okay, coming out of the submarine. And he said, and the Americans went to go and fight them. And he said, when the Americans pulled the trigger, none of the bullets came out of the end of their gun. They were all blanks. In other words, they had been sabotaged. So when God wants to raise up a nation, God raises up a nation. But when God wants to put down a nation, God puts down a nation. And there's a time coming, I hope it's not close, I hope it's not soon, when our efforts to defend ourselves will be futile. That's the point I needed to make. Eric Prince is a former Navy SEAL officer and founder of Blackwater Private Military Company. During their discussion, Prince pointed out that Russia changed the game this past week following the taunting of the U.S. and NATO attacks inside the Russian borders. According to Prince, the U.S. has no means to shoot down Russia's Mach 9 hypersonic missile like the one that was just fired on Ukraine last week. Russia fired its advanced hypersonic missile into Ukraine last week. Americans better wake up, Eric Prince said. There's no good outcome for this war. It needs to de-escalate and be done. There's no chance that Ukraine is going to retake its land. The Donetsk, the Luhansk, the areas in the east, certainly not Crimea. It's been a fool's errand for the last year and a half, and all we're doing is wiping out the next generations of Ukrainian men and Russian men, for that matter. Imagine if there was this border clash with Mexico and there were Russian-provided weapons being fired inside the United States. There's no way we would be able to tolerate that. Well, that's kind of what's happening. And I see I have run out of time, but we do appreciate your gifts and your support. Now, if you've been with Prophecy Club for a while, you know that these used to be an organization that we sponsored. Then Joseph Kitchen came along, so we dropped this one. But there's been a need to bring this one back. So what's the difference? This is wheat berries that you grind up and make your own homemade whole wheat bread. This is food that comes in a bucket. You just add water. Some of them you have to add boiling water, and you make your own food. So there's different kinds of food. So if you want this kind of food, you go to heavensharvest.com, heavensharvest.com. Use the promo code PROPHECY, get you a 10% discount. Hello, I'm Stan.
And I'm Leslie Johnson.
And we want to invite you to the PHD, the Prophecy, Healing, and Deliverance Conference.
So I hope you'll come from September the 11th through the 14th.
We have 6 seasoned ministers, 10 sessions, 2.5 days. I'm going to be speaking on Mark of the Beast, dangers of AI, and the new timing of the rapture.
And I'm going to speak on how to get ahead spiritually, close those spiritual doors, and the role of the prophet.
Lou and Sunhee Deliverance Ministries are going to be speaking on healing childhood experiences, what is eating you, spirit of infirmity, and yes, they will be doing deliverances.
Yes. And then Pastor Kate and Jonathan will be speaking on relationships.
It's limited to 100 registrations, so go to prophecyclub.com, get signed up, or
traintheprophets.com. We hope to see you there.
If you don't want to lose your life's savings, if you have an IRA or a 401k, the thing to do is call 800-200-GOLD. 800-200-GOLD. These folks are Christians, and they specialize in helping people not lose their life savings in the event of a stock market crash and things like that. Look, most of the 401ks, most of the IRAs are in paper, backed by paper, and as Lindsey Williams says, if it's in paper, it's worth the paper it's written on. You can lose it all. 1-800-200-GOLD. 800-200-GOLD. Hey, give them a call. Doesn't hurt, doesn't cost you anything. See if they can give you some good advice.